what we want to do is basically go through why do we get stuck, what is uncomfortable growth about, and the 4 questions that help us to move from stuck to significance. And I'm guessing the fact that you're all here is because this is something that could be relevant to you. Before we get started, I want you to pop into the chat box. How do you feel when you are stuck? So just in the chat box, just pop in whatever you feel. Okay, so we've got frustrated, unmotivated, more frustrated, like being in quicksand, very uncomfortable, disengaged, unproductive, annoyed. Yeah, lots of blocked. That's a good one, Suzanne. Uncertain from Gladys. Lots of negative emotions or hard emotions. Okay, so now I want you to actually put into the chat box, how do you feel when you are thriving? So the opposite of stuck. Okay, so confident, on top of the world, delighted, motivated, happy and energized. These are all lovely, aren't they? Amazing, dynamic, achievement, productive. Everything seems easier, thrilled and energized. So yeah, so all really positive things. So we've all experienced both. And the reason why that is because we actually have simultaneously a small self and a best self. So one of the things we forget is that these things exist in both of us. It's like having, you know, the good and the evil, the angel and the devil on your shoulder. We all have a small self and a best self, and they actually coexist. And one of them is driven by growth, where we want to embrace the unknown to grow. But the other one is driven by fear. And fear is actually a stronger wiring than growth. But when we're fearful, we tend to feel small. So that's when we feel stuck, and there's a whole heap of emotions that are not great, that are problematic, that you have to deal with when you're feeling small. On the other hand, your best self has all those wonderful emotions and feelings and, you know, how you think about the world coming through. I've actually put in here some of the words that you've actually articulated. And the reason why it's really difficult to manage this and have a small self and have an expanded best self is because of the way we're wired. So from a psychology point, from the way the brain works, the brain is more wired, your subconscious is more wired to avoid uncertainty, which is why fear is very easy to trigger. And Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, they've done a lot of research around this. They estimate the strength of pain or losses is actually 2 to 3 times more than gain. So for example, you know, if you were to lose $50 out of your wallet when you're walking, you may be, you know, going, oh, I've lost $50, that's terrible, you know, and feel really bad. But if you actually find $50, they'll be like, oh, that's good. But it's kind of like a top up. The loss actually hurts more than the gain. And when it comes to fear and how we respond to the world, we're more wired for fear. So what do we do about this? Well, basically, we need to recognize and actively manage this for ourselves. Because there is that internal tension. So both fear and growth exist and compete simultaneously in all of us. And it's when we recognize this that we're able to move from being in our small self to actually figuring out how to be our best self. And it's not that you'll ever get rid of fear. You can't get rid of it. It's wired into you, but you can recognize it and reduce it so that you can actually experience and enjoy the benefits of growth more than the negatives of fear. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Great. So that's pretty much what uncomfortable growth is about. So if you think about a ladder, and we all move up and down this ladder. So it's not like anyone can stay at a particular rung on the ladder all the time. But when we're able to recognize when we're being stuck or when we're our small self, that's when fear is dominating. And the challenging thing with fear is it's emotional, not rational, right? So fear is an emotion. It lives in your subconscious, and basically it can grow without any rational reason. So being able to recognize when that's happening is really important to being able to move up the ladder. And again, you'll find that there'll be triggers or curveballs or things that will happen that may cause you to move up and down the ladder again, but at least you can recognize that and then understand how to address it. Okay. So where on the ladder do people feel they are at the moment? If you feel confident, pop it in the chat box, because it's nice to be able to share and see where people feel they're at the moment. Curious, courageous, more curious. Struggling. Thanks, Sasha. Coping. Thanks, Liam. Coping for a long time, hoping to get to curious. Thanks, Amanda. Curious. So yeah, there's various places that we all are, and sometimes we can get stuck below the line, and that's really what uncomfortable growth is about. It's how to keep yourself more above the line. Okay, and there's no way that anyone can control what happens to you, or prevent hard things from happening. And in fact, a lot of hard things that happen end up becoming great sources of growth. But it's being able to understand how to navigate that, and how to basically move from below the line to above the line. Okay. So the 4 questions, and these are part of a process around how do you stay more above the line. So the 4 questions are pretty simple, actually. There's what I do, what I know, what could be, and what I choose. And you can see that they are questions which form a process. So from 1 to 4. The reality of these 4 questions, though, and this is where the complexity starts to come in, is that they apply to your whole life. So it's not just what I do for my career, it's what I do for myself, my family, my contribution, where you give back to society, and then also my career. Okay, so it gets complex because it's not just one part of your life, it's all of your life. And as we all know, life happens simultaneously. We're not just working, we're also being real people ourselves. We've got family and we've got contribution. Okay, so we're going to go through these questions. I'm going to share some other stuff. If someone's, can someone just mute themselves? There's a bit of background noise. If someone's not muted. And basically, I want you to choose one of the areas to be able to think about as we go through the next questions. So in the chat box, it's totally up to you what you choose. Just type in for me, what is the area that you'd like to think through the 4 questions around. Okay, so we've got family, we've got career, self, career, another self. Okay, so mainly self and career and a couple of family. Okay, great. So the great thing about these questions is you can apply them to all areas individually and simultaneously. Okay, so when you're going through uncomfortable growth, okay, it's more of a personal journey. Okay, so even though, you know, we can show nice charts and visuals and diagrams and they all look, you know, slick and easy to understand, when you're going through uncomfortable growth, both fear and best self, it's very emotional. And so that's why I like to visualize it like this. And there's always the current situation. So where you are today, as you guys said on the ladder, you know, a lot of you are above the line, some of you are below the line, some of you are in the middle coping. So that's the current situation. But what we want to do is we want to get to the goal or the dream for the future. So the first question, what I do, and this is important to just stop and recognize how you got here. So why am I here? What's causing me to feel as I do? Am I happy to be here? And where am I today on the ladder? So, yeah, step back and just understand what is it that's creating that sense of either being your best self or your small self. Okay, and one of the things I talk about in my book around this first question, I call it the squirm. So when you're below the line, it's not always rational how we recognize it. In fact, it shows up much more often as a feeling. So the squirm can manifest in your stomach. Some people say that they get tight shoulders. Some people say that they get, you know, frustrated or snappy. Some of you mentioned frustrated in the box, in the chat box. And that's because emotions live in your subconscious. Okay, so it's not always rational why, but you often know that you're feeling not happy where you are before you've actually articulated how it is I'm going to move forward. Okay, so always pay attention to the squirm. That's my very untechnical name, because it's yourself talking to you and saying, I'm not happy with how things are at the moment. Okay. The second question, what I know, what has my experience taught me and how has this shaped my beliefs? So a great exercise to do, if you haven't already done it, is to be able to create your life experience timeline. And so this can be really simple. You can just grab a piece of, you know, paper like this, A4 paper, just put a line across it and put a plus up the top and a negative for the bottom, and just divide it into roughly, you know, the kind of decades or chunks of years that you've lived. So you end up with, you know, 5 or 6 chunks of time. Now you can do this for a particular part of your life. So you could do it just for your career, or you can do it for your whole life. And what's really helpful about this is you'll start to see not only all of the different events that have happened to you that stay in your mind. You know, these are the things that resonate, that remember. These are the things that have shaped you. But you'll also see the things that connect. And when we end up doing this, we're able to look back and ask these 3 questions, which become really important. Because this is understanding how you've actually internalized what happened. Okay, so the first question, and these come from Matt Church, these questions, who's a great thought leader. The first question is, what happened? So what actually happened in the event? You know, what was it that happened? The second question is, what did it mean? So what story did this create in my mind? What did I take out from it? And the third question is, what is it really about? And this is how events that we remember because they were significant in some way actually stay in our mind and behaviors as beliefs. And to just illustrate this, I'm just going to share a personal situation of mine, just to show you how this works. And the important thing to do is to really take your top 5 events, the things that have shaped you the most, and run this exercise, because it will actually teach you so much about yourself. So what was the simultaneously best and worst year of my life? Well, it was in 2006, and it was when I was pregnant for the first time. Excited to be a new mum. Fantastic. So I have Charlie. She's a beautiful 8-pound baby, and she's gorgeous. And then for a few weeks, I'm in that blur, that complete blur of exhausted new mum, and they're always awake and feeding and needing something. Can you feel like you're in Groundhog Day, you know, up 24/7, but not doing anything? And I'm like not feeling well. So I'm just like, oh, but it's just postpartum and I'm exhausted as a new mum, and it's just, you know, my obstetrician is like, oh yeah, it's just hormonal and, you know, everything going back to normal. And I'm feeling really good because I get to 6 weeks and she's thriving, she's putting on weight, and it's really good. But then I actually end up being diagnosed with cancer. So, and this is when I was 33 years old. So very young, still a new mum. And basically I remember the doctors found it because I had an accelerated heart rate, and they ended up finding a tumor in my chest. And I actually said to them, I said, I think you've got the wrong person. You know, this can't be possible because my body has just had a baby and there's no way it could do both of these things. And they kind of looked at me and went, definitely your scans, and we're calling the oncologist and you're not going home. So it was a very serious, horrible event that happened at the same time as being a new mum. But luckily for me, it was treatable. I went through intense chemo. The silver lining is that my husband David got carer's leave, and so we both got to enjoy Charlie as a baby, as a newborn. The other silver lining is I tolerated the cancer really well. So I didn't feel as sick as I could have. So we were able to go and do things as a family some of the time. But then towards the end, you know, the question was, did it work? You know, and then it appears to work. So it's gone into remission, it's shrunk. But then another question is, well, what if it comes back? Because if it comes back with the sort of cancer I had, then it's quite serious because they don't have another type of treatment that they know will be effective. So there's all these things happening. And then at the same time, I'm also thinking, and what about work? Like if I'm fine and I want to move home. So we were living in the US at the time and not near my family or David's family who are in Scotland. So I want to move home. And luckily for me, J&J transferred me. But for a long time after this kind of 6 months of such intense time with something so wonderful and something so terrible, it's like I'm still processing. It's just been such extreme highs and lows. And so how did the 3 questions impact? You know, because it's just so much to take in. And the reality is we all have these sort of curveballs. It may not be cancer, it may be cancer, it could be something else. So we all have those extreme times of going like this. But what's important is we figure out how has it impacted us and is it serving us? So the first question, what happened? Well, I became a new mum and was diagnosed with cancer within 6 weeks of each other. So that's a picture of me, really bad hair because it's a wig, but beautiful little Charlie as a very cute baby. So that's what happened. What did it mean? For me, it was just, you know, up until then, I'd never had anything really horrible or hard happen. A few bumps, you know, but nothing extreme, nothing life-threatening. So what did it mean for me? The most wonderful and horrible things can happen at the same time. It could be just around the corner. Like, who would ever expect that at 33? And you can steer your life, but you're actually not in control. Something equally bad could happen tomorrow. I hope it doesn't, but it could. And then the third question, what is it now about? Well, for me, it was to not take good things for granted, to be grateful for what you have in the moment, in the now. I know I can handle curveballs. I know they'll still be horrible, and I know I'll still go up and down that ladder, but I know I can handle it, and I know that there are still ups after the downs. And most importantly, for me, it was very much about live your best life now. So, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so rather than planning long term and thinking I'll do this and then this, and we'll go here and there, and it's like, just let it unfold. Just do what you want and live your best life now and see where that takes you. So this event actually had a really big impact on what I'm now doing, even though it took me another 10 years or so to get there. It basically set the foundation for a lot of the work I'm doing now. And the thing to remember with your life timeline, if you create your own, is to choose the 5 events that have shaped you the most. Some of them will be above the line, some of them will be below the line. Okay, and just recognize how you manifest fear. So, and I put this up because sometimes our experiences don't manifest in helpful behaviors. So it can create limiting beliefs. And it's, we get these beliefs in our head that actually don't serve us. And they're not necessarily true. Okay, so we all have limiting beliefs and we all have some empowering beliefs, but it's your mind that actually is how you get to being your best self more often, moving from your small self to your best self. It's in your mind. And the reason why the timeline is so helpful is because it brings it to the surface. It brings it to consciousness, because all of these beliefs live in your subconscious. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, so if you get a chance, do the exercise and you'll learn a lot about yourself. Okay, so question number 3. So we're currently at question number 2, what I know. And what fear also does is it makes us see only one path, the perfect path. I don't know if you guys have done this, but it's like, this is the plan. This is my plan. This is the path I want. And how often does the path happen like that? Like pretty much never, right? But because we don't like uncertainty, we get addicted to this one path, and it has to happen like this. And that's actually not helpful, but it doesn't also help us get to the best path. And so this is this ability to be able to hold uncertainty and be okay with the next part, which is exploring possibilities and opportunities. So what could be? This is the part that people do the least. Okay, so we're all pretty good at what I do. What I know is the past, so you can look back and do the exercises and really gain insight into yourself, but being able to explore what could be, because that's not the straight line. But when we try and go for a straight line and that straight line doesn't happen, that's when we get stuck. Okay, so by reframing some of our beliefs and exploring, taking action to explore, the trick is to create a staircase down of possibilities. Now, if you pop enough possibilities, then some of them will come together as opportunities. And it's a lot like the marketing funnel for my marketing friends, you know, where you've got awareness, consideration, and conversion, same funnel. Okay, you want to pop lots of possibilities. I call them popcorn possibilities. You know, when you put the popcorn in the microwave and nothing happens for like the first 30 seconds, and then they go pop, 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 and it's like you've got all these popcorns. Okay, that's what you want to do with possibilities. And that's about exploring. It's about taking lots of actions. Now, to do that, you have to step outside of your comfort zone. And the reason why we often don't explore, besides we're committed to our one path and we don't want to see beyond that, is because we feel like we're wasting people's time, or we're feeling vulnerable. I don't want to ask why I wasn't given that promotion, or I don't want to ask, you know, why the relationship didn't work out, or, you know, it's fear that holds us back. But possibilities lead to opportunities. And if we just accept up front that nothing succeeds as planned, since when have plans ever succeeded as planned, either personally or in business? They never succeed as planned, right? So if we just accept that as a fact, then it gives us the ability to move forward and just explore. Now, this takes courage, okay? And it does require the skill of reframing fear to take action. And that is something which requires, you know, there's certain techniques, certain ways to look at that, to do that, because it's only when what we want is bigger than what we fear that we're able to take action. Okay, so like I said at the start, pain is greater than gain. So if there are fears holding us back, asking for feedback, or whatever it is, wasting people's time, we have to get really clear about why we want this, because that gives us the conviction and the desire to have the courage to do it. Okay, and it's courage that helps you move through fear. That's the bit that enables you to override your subconscious wiring. Okay, and it's interesting because a lot of the time it's little things. You know, think about going into a meeting, you know, and you ask questions, and like people, you say, who's got questions? And suddenly, you know, not many hands go up, or the same people put their hands up. You know, other little things like when I run training programs, I'll say to people, oh, you know, sit with someone you don't know. People always sit with people they know first. Always. And then I have to count people into groups. I'm like, okay, everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's your group, to mix people up. That's because we don't like discomfort. Small things like sitting with people we don't know. No one would say that's a massive fear in general, okay? But it's the little things, not asking the question, not having the coffee, not being open and vulnerable. It's the little things that hold us back the most on an everyday basis. And so using these techniques enables you to recognize what's holding you back so you can act and pop lots of popcorn opportunities. Okay, so that then leads us to the last question, which is what I choose. Now, it's really interesting because once you've gone through this process, sometimes people rethink their current choice and they say, you know what, I'm actually really happy with what I'm doing. What I choose doesn't mean something new always. Often it is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. What's really important is that you're happy with your choice and you're not acting from fear. Okay, you're acting from a point where you're really happy with your choice and you know why you've chosen that. Okay, and that's the thing that keeps us above the line. I'm sure you guys have all experienced too, you know, where you feel choices have been forced on you, or it wasn't your choice, it wasn't something you're happy about. Well, this is your chance to make your own choice. to take the time to recognize what's behind your mindset, what's behind your motivation, and then to take action and then make a decision that makes sense for you. The other thing we do is we get stuck in our choices. So we think, I made that choice, 2 years ago, and we think that that choice lasts forever. It doesn't. Your choices will constantly change because you change. Okay, and just because you made that choice 2 years ago doesn't mean it's the right choice for you now. Okay, but it's this conscious awareness that you're able to do this, that this is something you can do based on what's right for you across your whole life. Okay, so what I've just gone through is the highly, highly, highly condensed version of what uncomfortable growth is about. So I'm not going to read you all of that, but it's a discipline. It's not just a concept. So what we're talking about is, how do you live above the line? And so you need to rewire yourself to do that. And there are a lot of different techniques on how you can do that, but they take time to learn. They take time to apply. And it's something then that you have to have a disciplined approach to be able to continually do it. Otherwise, we're kind of more like ping pong balls where we could ping above the line or ping below the line. The best part about uncomfortable growth is you are choosing where you're at. Okay, it's not reacting to something that happened to you. It's recognizing where you're at and choosing, how do you stay above the line? Horrible things may still happen, wonderful things still may happen, but you're not going to necessarily oscillate to the extreme that you have, because you know yourself and you understand how to respond rather than just react. Okay, so most important point, okay, all of us manifest our small self and our best self differently. Okay, my history, my background is different to all of yours. My career is different to all of yours. Who I am, my personality traits, is also different to all of you. Everyone is unique. So the most important thing you can do in managing and owning your own growth is to know yourself. Okay, because just talking about it won't be enough. And I say to people, if you want to grow, then you have to do the work. And actually, it's very fulfilling work, right? It's wonderful to actually have a sense of self and understand yourself better, and who you are and who you've become, and also who you could be. For those of you who are parents, I'm sure you can relate when you see your children growing up and becoming these little people. And then, things happen in their lives as they get older and they become a slightly different person. And you can actually see the difference because you're there looking at them every day. Okay, well, that's an important approach to take for yourself. And so one of the most important questions is, when was the last time you had a cup of tea with yourself? Okay, and by that, I don't literally mean a cup of tea. You can have wine if you want. Maybe not at midday, but when was the last time you really stepped back to know yourself? Because unless we do it in a structured way, it all kind of joins up with busy noise. Okay, so we haven't really thought through the 3 questions. What happened? What did it mean? What is it really about? We haven't recognized where we've got limiting beliefs. We haven't thought about what fears, even if they're small things, that hold us back. We also haven't probably crystallized what we want, not the execution detail, like I'd really like to get this specific promotion, or like, what do you really want? What does success mean to you? The reason why midlife crisis is a thing is because a lot of people will get to middle age, like my age, and go, this is not really what I want. Like, it doesn't feel fulfilling enough. Like, all those things I kind of thought was success, they don't feel fulfilling for me. So it's, you know, it's important to define that for yourself. And the start is to know yourself.